Good morning, everyone. Is it morning? It's like 3 minutes before it stops being morning, whatever, who cares? My name is Shelby. I am the owner of Scooter Girls Tech Support, but today I'm just coming as a regular old American living in Ohio. And today I want to talk to other Americans. I'm sorry to people who don't live in the US. I understand a lot of everything's already focused around the US and it's getting freaking exhausting. Feel free to still listen, feel free to still comment, but I need to talk to my country people. Okay, that's what we're doing today. All right. So I am like a lot of millennials, okay, where it has been one crisis after another. But I also understand that regardless of your generation, you have been going through some crises too. I even see people supposedly from the spoiled, entitled generation, the boomers, who are struggling, who have had their houses taken away from them because of property taxes, poverty, medical debt, who have seen the nursing homes that they are going to go into eventually get eaten up by private equity. You have Gen X, who usually also has it pretty good, and I get into a lot of arguments with because they tend to try to coach me to just do what my boss tells me and just play the game. But even I can also recognize that a lot of them are struggling. A lot of Americans are struggling. Anyone you talk to, unless they are in a gated community, everyone basically more or less is struggling, including people who previously before would have been okay. Like, the new standard for being okay has shifted so much. Before this current era, let's say, and this sort of depends, some people do it before 2008. I'm going to say kind of before Trump took office the second time, because that's when I think it really just became like a black diamond, steep hill down. Most people were at least able to kind of more or less keep a job, or run a business if they couldn't keep a job due to disabilities or something, like me. And then you get the tariffs. And then you get the corporations clearly getting into bed with the government. And this is actually, believe it or not super controversial amongst Americans. A lot of us, except when you get into like the really MAGA diehards, I've even known some people who have like voted for Trump in the past, but also like kind of agree that corporations are in bed too much with the government. Now we disagree on kind of what to do about that. They don't necessarily want to regulate them. They just want to kind of, I don't know, vote in yet different people. I don't know. I honestly don't know. There's a disconnect there. But at least in, casual conversation, we can actually reach a common ground on that. So, as you can see, and people outside might be like, well, aren't Americans so polarized? Well, here's the thing. We are and we aren't, okay? Yes, there are people that have had to be disowned or disown themselves from their families because their parents got so far down the MAGA rabbit hole that there was nothing viable to do than to leave, because their only other option was to basically cancel everything they were. But guess what? That's actually also the case. I have had to do something very similar, and my parents hate Trump. They love to brag about the fact that they voted for Biden, that they voted for Harris, that they voted for Clinton, okay? That they have been voting for Democrats for the last 10, 20, whatever years, okay? They love to brag about it. But you know what? Basically, everything else and the way they act, they might as well have voted for Trump. And there's a lot of people like that. So what do I want to talk to my fellow Americans about? What the fuck are you all doing? What the fuck are you all doing? Just continuing to go to work or look for jobs like nothing has changed. But yeah, you'll go on social media and talk about how bad everything is, or in the break room, whatever, and on the phone calls about how bad everything is. But yeah, when it comes time to actually hold your ground, even just a boss says, hey, I'm going to be a little harsher on you. That you don't say, hey, why is this rule being imposed on me and not on other people? Why did ranked choice voting fail in Ohio? Okay? Everyone can basically agree that it sucks to vote for two parties. You can actually get people on all sides to basically more or less agree with that. So why did it fail? Okay? Well, you know what? I actually have a pretty good idea. So a lot of people think, oh, well, so many Americans voted for MAGA, voted for Trump. Where I live in Appalachia, a lot of people who are not from this area or familiar with this area believe everyone here voted for MAGA. No, what actually happened is a lot of them didn't vote at all. And in some ways, I think more and more I'm becoming at least as angry at the people who didn't vote at all as the people who voted for Trump. Because the people who voted for Trump, if I can't say anything else nice about them, I can at least say that they cared enough about where they thought was the best direction for the country, even though a lot of it was based on bigotry and God knows what. I can at least say that they got up off their ass and did something about it. I can't say anything else nice, but I can say that. Meanwhile, I have to listen to people all over Blue Sky, Facebook, probably would still be LinkedIn. I abandoned that a long time ago. In real life. Okay, everyone's like, well, that's social media. Social media sucks. That's just a loud minority. No, real life, I can't tell you how many people will be like, I was working with a lady who legit told me, oh yeah, Trump ruined the job market. That's why I don't vote. Excuse me? I think I actually handled it pretty diplomatically, and a tactic I take with those people nowadays, because I've learned that sitting there trying to argue about whether voting in the federal elections it's going to get you absolutely nowhere. They are not. It's not a movable middle issue. Read the book The Catalyst if you want to know what I'm talking about. But essentially, so instead I say, why don't you vote in local elections? Your vote actually makes a difference. Sometimes candidates or issues will win by literally a matter of like 72, 10 votes. But you know what the average percentage of turnout is for a lot of local places? And this, you're going to have to go look for your various areas. Some will vary. It's often like 16. I don't have a stat off the top of my head. Honestly, just go look it up for your area. I can bet you that it is lower than the state elections and the federal elections. So what the fuck are we doing? Are we just going to continue to, like, do we enjoy our misery? I really think we need to have that hard conversation of, like, do we enjoy our misery? Are we that friends that just complains and complains and complains about how their partner is abusive and their job sucks, but no matter how much advice you give them or how much you lend an ear or a shoulder to cry on, that just never actually make their lives better? Are we that friend? I think we are. And don't give me the whole, like, oh, well, that's them over there. That's you. You. Okay? I've seen leftists like this. I've seen liberals, obviously, MAGA, libertarians, socialists, like people who proudly, even people who, like, actually, especially people who call themselves communists. What are you doing? You know, and here's the thing of it, too, that's so frustrating is there's so many little things we can do day in and day out. Whenever you talk about civic action, political action, Americans like to go big and go home. We're kind of famous for it. You know, we're bigger people, we're louder, we're just, everything's bigger. It's not just Texas. We're pretty much all like that, you know, compared to the rest of the country. You know, whenever something happens, we always kind of go, you know, to the extremes. Oh, Russia's, you know, Russia beat us in the space race for something. We're going to pour so much money into education like we never have before so we can get more people into STEM. And hell, maybe we'll even let in a few minorities and women. So, why does it have to be the big things? Why is it only... What's so frustrating is sometimes, though, at the same time, I think we all understand voting with your dollar. I actually think a lot of Americans believe that voting with your dollar has more power than just actually voting. Okay, fine. In our capitalist society, probably true. Has truth. At least, again, while we have our shitty two-party system, it's like, I'm not honestly going to argue with that. So then why then are you complaining about how bad these fast food places are and how they treat workers? You've worked there yourself and how bad they are, yet you keep going to them. Oh, and by the way, the fast food's getting more expensive. Anyway, like, it's not worth it. Why are y'all still going? Like, for how much for it is for a coffee at the shitty McDonald's I'm working at that's currently retaliating against me, a lot of those workers, they're not going to quit. They're going to keep working there. And even after they quit, they're going to keep going to that McDonald's. And they're not going to tell their family and stuff, oh, don't go to that McDonald's. Why? Especially for how much we pay for a coffee there, go to the local coffee shop. It's probably better anyway. Like, we're so obsessed with our convenience and comfort, we will not do the smallest goddamn things to actually make an impact. Okay? How about just buy less shit off Amazon? I'm not even saying you have to stop buying shit off Amazon, okay? I have a friend currently tearing his own van apart and fixing it up. And you know what? He can't completely avoid Amazon. And he actually still likes ordering stuff off Amazon. We just disagree on that. That's just something we disagree on. But you know what I have gotten him to do? I have gotten him to at least pause and consider if Amazon's really the only place to get it. He will look at other places, and he is at least now aware that Amazon sucks. Okay? And I think it's pushed him to look more at Facebook Marketplace, which he was already using. You know, I've introduced him to eBay, okay? Very small thing. I wasn't even able to completely move him, but I think I got him to at least go on Amazon less, okay? That adds up. I don't even care. And you're like, well, I can't stop going to McDonald's. I freaking love their, I don't know, McRib or whatever, because you're weird. Maybe get it once a month instead of once a week or 3 times a week. But no, we can't even do that. I would like people to actually tell me straight up in the comments why they can't give up certain things. Or what they'd like to give up. But the problem is, I'm not going to get those comments. I'm going to get a bunch of comments of people just telling me how much they agree with me. The people that are going to watch this video are not going to be the people I'm actually talking to. This video is probably not going to get very many views, you know, quite frankly. It's in a, you know, shittily lit, you know, I'm not particularly attractive anymore. It's just someone bitching into a camera, you know. To be honest, I don't even know if I would necessarily watch this video without someone recommending it to me. Now let's talk about employers. So, I don't think it's any secret that companies, corporations have more power than the government. Okay, they, like, nobody really likes to talk about this. At least I don't hear anybody talking about it in this manner. They'll talk about it maybe in similar ways. But our government really is more so companies. Apple, Google, all that, McDonald's. They really are government more than the actual government, especially right now under Trump. So, all this, like, small government, all this, where did that go? We talk a lot about freedom and pursuit of happiness. But yeah, chances are pretty good you hate your job if you have one. Heck, I even know people that work for themselves that still hate their lives because they feel like they have to work 7 days a week. Why do we go on so much about freedom, freedom, we're the country of freedom, freedom, freedom. But yet we sell ourselves to employers. And here's the thing that's so insidious. We all know we're doing it. We talk about it very openly. We talk about it openly on social media. When we're at work, when the manager's not around, we're like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. You know, she's clearly favoring one employee over the other. This manager's a fucking man-child that's basically allowed to do whatever they want. But even though we all agree on these issues, getting people to do the smallest goddamn fucking thing about it is near impossible. Meanwhile, you got the supposedly socialist and unfree Europe over there. They have cooperatives. They have unions. Companies can only go so far. They have paid parental leave. Okay? They have recognized that in an economy, we're not even necessarily being moralist or woke anymore. They just recognize that if certain things are taken care of for humans in your society, society runs better. You want people to have kids? Well, guess what? You need to tell the companies to fucking get off their high horse and let people actually stay home with their baby they just had instead of having to return to work a week later, like several women I know had to. And that's a normal thing here. That's a normal thing. How the fuck did we wound up as a country that is so big on family? We need more people to have babies. You know, the main way a woman can get attention on social media is talking about pregnancy announcements and having babies. But yeah, when it comes to work, we're like, nope, you gotta come back to work like a week after you've had that baby. Like, do you just not care? And people do nothing. And we're so stuck in our tiny box. People will not do the smallest things. Like, every job I've been at, I try to get people to do, and these were people that I got along with who liked me, or at least I thought so. I don't know, I'm autistic. I'm honestly pretty bad at telling whether people like me or not. But we can at least all agree the management sucked. So, I mean, we were at least friends insofar as, like, the enemy is my friend kind of way. Or at least so I thought. They're so stuck in their little box of how to act. I was like, what if we even just all signed something or sent an email, even just individually, just all condemning the same thing? They can't fire all of us. And it might actually be protected under union activity. I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer. A lawyer can pop off that in the comments of whether that, like, constitutes, like, protected union activity or whatever. They can't even do that. My current job, there was a manager who was so stressed out, so constantly, every moment the store manager wasn't there, was complaining about her. And I asked her, I was like, well, why don't you bring it up in a meeting? You know, why don't we get together and go? She's like, oh, yeah, well, you know, they don't, you know, and just constantly like, well, I'm going to quit next week. I'm going to, I don't know. And a bunch of managers were like that. Guess what? They're all still working there. They still haven't done a goddamn thing. And this is every place I've worked. I've had so many people where we'll talk for hours about how to actually change the management, how to actually at least bring some accountability to the management, even if it's not nearly enough, just at least start the process. And then when it comes time to do it, they're nowhere to be found. Okay. Meanwhile, in the free countries over there, or countries that don't recognize freedom over there, Italians can walk into and buy out the company if they don't like. There's a more perfect union video on this. Maybe I'll link it in the comments. And they say something near the end of that video, though, that I really like, which is, why do we leave democracy at the door when we go to work? Why do we? No, seriously. Why do we? Do you really do it because you think it's the best thing morally? Because you think it's what your kids want? Because I know it's the first thing you're going to do, is you're going to say, like, oh, well, I got kids and stuff, to provide for, I got rent, You think your kids are really going to be proud of you for spending less time with them and telling them to also go do the same thing that made you miserable? Do you really think that that's what they want you to do? Okay. Oh, well, I'm doing it for my coworkers. I don't want to leave them. Really? Because if you really actually cared about your coworkers, wouldn't you go leave, get a better job, and then try to poach your coworkers? No, you're not going to do that because you're afraid of pissing off that employer, even when you no longer work for them. It's fear. We all know it's fear. We don't talk about it, but it's fear. Okay? We Americans are completely consumed by fear. And I've been trying to figure out why this is, like why Americans are so particularly fearful. I have a couple theories. Feel free to pop off in the comments what yours are. I think we Americans have had it so relatively stable and good, combined with a culture from like World War II onwards that basically said, hey, if you just go to work and do what your boss tells you, even if he's a dick or she's a dick, usually he, let's be real, things will work out. And for a couple generations, that actually was true. Okay, for boomers and Gen Xers, it was like, yeah, we hate our boss, our coworkers are idiots, but you know what? We get paid enough. We go home to our house, fence, car, spouse, kids, hobbies, Like, you know what? I would probably tolerate a shitty boss too, even with my, and we'll leave it. Even with my seemingly outspoken nature and just wanting to just set fire to everything, not literally, that's metaphorically. That's a figure of speech. Okay, calm down. I probably would too, honestly. If I had the choice to go work at a job where my boss was just kind of shitty, wasn't trying to get me fired every second, which is kind of shitty, but it was paying well, that I could get a house, I would too, honestly. I've gotten a lot of arguments with Gen Xers over this, but honestly, I see where they're coming from. They're trying to shove a really outdated worldview down my throat, but they're not actually wrong, per se. At least, not for them. And so now we're in the modern day, and we've taken for granted that all these nice things, this stability, and we forget what gave us that stability in the first place. The reason you could have that stability is because companies could only go so far. And over time, through both, I think, legislation, I don't even know if necessarily there's been like legislation taken out. I think it's honestly just lack of enforcement. Companies getting bigger and being able to basically, if the government tries to hold them accountable, which they rarely do, but when they do, the company's like, fuck you, what are you going to do? And the government's like, okay. Obviously, that's a masked overgeneralization, but that, if you had to say it in one short little clip, that's basically what's going on. Reagan's famous for fucking with a lot of the unions. We already know about that. Obviously, companies have gotten way too big. And, the thing of it is that I really hate is we all know that companies are too big, and we don't really seem to want to do anything about it. Maybe I'm just rambling now. I think I'm just circling back to an old point. The point being is we're so fearful we give up our power before we even start. I can't tell you how many comments on the internet and in real life where people do this long paragraph complaining about how their employer mistreated them, and then it's like, well, have you even tried going to a lawyer, or even just putting a post on Facebook? Okay, maybe you don't have a case. I get that. I saw one comment earlier today. They're only going to take slam dunk cases. You know what? Maybe you're right. But, how will you know if you don't talk to a lawyer? Oh, well, I don't have the time. Okay, well, do you have the time to do a Facebook post exposing them? You clearly have time to write a comment here detailing all your problems. Why don't you do, They don't do it. Why? No, seriously, why? Oh, well, it's not going to do anything. Well, yeah, because everyone else won't do it. Why are we so afraid to break the mold? Why do we think it's we're like all these abused children that still think, when I was a child, I legitimately worried that my parents and the abusive teachers could see inside my mind and see that I was thinking against them. I was a child, okay? It's stupid, it's insane, but I was a child. Yet I'm seeing grown-ass adults act like this. What? And here's the insidious part, and I think this is where we need to stop seeing ourselves as victims and start seeing ourselves as actually part of the problem, as actually the enemy. Especially if, now obviously if you are like 18, 19, 20, you should still be listening, but I'm really talking more to my 25, 30 and up. Every day that you choose to do nothing, to stand up, you are saying to the companies, yes, you are free to do what you want. I'm also okay with you treating my children like that, my grandchildren. If we start, they've gotten too big, but if we start fighting back now, we might be able to eventually create a future where our kids and grandkids maybe don't have to deal with this shit. But no. I know people tend to favor their own generation. I think millennials, and ironically, actually, some sections of the boomers, I think the ones that were the hippies, fight back a lot. But even then, I feel like that's still a minority. We complain about these CEOs having really short-term thinking, and they do. But at some point, we need to turn around and say, well, they're getting away with their short-term thinking because we have short-term thinking. Because we say, you know what, I'm just going to give in to my impulses and, buy this thing from this shitty company that's, laying off people willy-nilly because I just want it now. And it's not going to do anything. And, what's the harm? Again, I want to say we're acting like children, but that's honestly an insult to children because children have an excuse. They don't know better yet. We're not children. We're a bunch of adults acting like children. That's what we are. I don't know. I'm so tired. I really think, unfortunately, I think a lot of people in my situation are really just reaching the point of we have to just move out of this country. And it's not something I'm proud of. It's honestly kind of something I avoided. And then eventually I just reached a point where I realized this country is really not going to get better until one or two generations age out of government. Probably literally have to die off because they're not retiring. And no, I'm not advocating for killing them off early. I'm saying just literally the boomers and Gen Xers are literally going to have to just keel over while in office. And then millennials and Gen Zers. And even then, I'm honestly kind of worried that when the millennials, get into office, that we're just going to do much the same. Yeah, we might make it less car dependent. We might do some other good things. I'm excited for my generation getting into office, but, I'm not going to just blindly say my generation's the best. I'm worried we won't even actually break up the companies. Everyone called Elizabeth Warren crazy for saying let's break up the companies. And yeah, I don't know if she necessarily had the best plan to do it. I don't think it's going to be something we're going to be able to do quickly. But I'm leaving these pauses in because I think I just literally speak for a lot of the Americans that are trying to do something when it's what do we do? This video is 30 minutes long. It's probably just dragging on. If you've honestly watched through this whole video, even if you disagree with me, honestly, I have to give you some respect. Or you're probably listening to this video while you do something else. I would. That's the only way you can get me to listen to some of these videos. Listen, I cast no stones. So I'm going to end this video off with some suggestions of things to do that I've done. Are they doing anything meaningful? I don't know. But they help with the depression. And I like to think that if we can start making local changes, they will eventually rise up to the federal level, even if it's just in giving people hope. Strong towns. Look up and look at your local strong towns. Even if you don't necessarily agree with their idea of like, hey, let's be less car centric, I think you should still look at them for a model of bottom up activism. And honestly, at this point, even just like checking in and actually becoming friends with your neighbors, I think would be radical at this point, would be like a radical, fantastic change at this point. Like, honest to God, the rugged individualism that we've all been trained into, and we younger generations are not immune to this either. This is not like an old people thing. Actually, if anything, that's the one thing I kind of have to give boomers credit for, is they still go to church. They have their churches, they have their social groups. What are the millennials' equivalent of church? I'm not saying we all need to go back to church, but what's our equivalent? We kind of don't have any. I've been trying to work on that. I've been trying to fix that problem, but yeah, especially after the pandemic, getting people to leave their house is really hard. Hell, even trying to get people to congregate into groups to just talk online, even that's hard. So honestly, even just making friends with your neighbors. And then when you have issues with the landlord, go together. Yeah, if you can form a whole tenant union, it's that great. But if you can't form a tenant union, don't just give up. Some other things, obviously, I already talked about the don't buy shit. The reality of it is you're either already doing that or you're not. I don't even know why I spent so much time talking about it. So, oh, here's another one. Actually, I think my current boss at McDonald's is trying to call me because I pissed off her little baby boy favorite manager. So she's trying to call me because she's trying. Actually, here's a good example. And this one you can do, and I cannot guarantee you won't get fired, but you'll at least put your employer in a really weird position. And you may also have a case for retaliation if they're doing this in response to being part of a protected class, yada yada. Watch Attorney Ryan and those kinds of people if you want more details. I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to let the experts talk more about that. So they're trying to pull me into this room so that basically that baby boy manager can just be like, me, could just like go off on me because I asked them to do something that literally everybody else is supposed to do. And I'm just refusing to do it. Now, thankfully, I have set up my life in such a way that I have multiple income streams. So while it would kind of suck to lose my McDonald's income, it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world. I have a whole other successful small business that is growing. Which actually that's another thing you can do. The best financial advice I can give to anyone under starting out is have multiple income streams. Because they're probably going to go in and out anyway. I'm getting off track. Don't let them pull you into that little room. Don't let them just do that little one-on-one. If you're really going to let them record it, a lot of people get really nervous about recording, and recordings honestly can go wrong. I've had recordings where I've recorded conversations with employers going off at me, and then I listen back to it and you can't hear anything. Make them put it in writing. I am standing my ground with that boss and saying, nope, write me an email. You can put whatever you want in that email. You can tell me I'm a horrible employee, you can all that. She won't do it. They won't do it. And I think we all know why. I think both of us, both her, I, people above her, we all know why she's not going to put it in an email. Or probably agree to a recorded conversation. They'll probably record me, but I can't record them. So if we all know, why are you afraid of them? Instead of taking that, oh, they're trying to pull me in a room so they can lecture me, instead of saying that, it's like, oh shit, I gotta fold and do what I say so I can keep my money, be like, but then you hear all your other employees be like, what if this is an opportunity? And so I've been taking this as an opportunity to put on Facebook, but another thing is like, hey, this McDonald's suck. Don't go with this McDonald's. And I put a post on a Facebook page and I got 15 likes. In a group where any post usually gets 2 likes at best. Is it small? Is it going to do anything? Is it going to put them out of business? Put that location out of business? No. People are still going to go because they have to get their coffee and stuff. But that little bit, now people are like, oh, I'm not alone. I think sometimes the most powerful thing you can do that I've seen in my experiences is just let people know that you're not alone, that we're not alone. And unfortunately, yes, a lot of things are going to start small. I know in a lot of the leftist and progressive groups, incrementalism is a dirty word. I honestly, quite frankly, don't know what else works, especially with how bad a lot of things have gone. It's going to have to start small. It's going to have to start local. You know, you don't like that? Okay, fine. Sit there and let MAGA continue doing what they're doing. Oh, Shelby, that's a false binary. No, it isn't. No, it isn't, because all categories of actions are basically going to fall into one of those two things. You're either going to do something or you're not. And no, posting on social media is not doing something. That doesn't count anymore. Maybe earlier on, especially if you were more of a public figure. Now, because the people that see it won't, that need to see it, won't see it. They've blocked you. They've muted you. They've, turned off comments. On Blue Sky, you can turn off comments to anyone who isn't your connection. I hate that feature. I hate it so much. I'm okay with the mute block. Like, I'll occasionally, I was originally against this. I'm not anymore. Like, I will occasionally just mute people if they just fill up my notifications with bullshit and they're clearly not looking for a good discussion. You can mute people. That's fine. So what are you doing today about, fascism? When are we going to decide that actually fascism sucks enough for me to do something about it?